The first thing I saw that morning was lumber. Not sunrise, not my fence line, not Boone sprinting ahead of the truck like he usually did. Lumber, stacks of it, tall enough to block the view of the east side of my property, and for a second my brain genuinely refused to process what my eyes were looking at. Because nobody expects to pull onto their own land at 6 in the morning and find thousands of dollars worth of construction material sitting there like it's always belonged. I slowed the truck to a stop, engine idling, coffee still warm in the cup holder. Boone jumped out first and immediately started sniffing around the pallets like he already knew something was off. I stepped out behind him and just stood there. The air still smelled like wet dirt from overnight rain. The sun hadn't fully broken over the ridge yet. Everything was quiet except birds and a little traffic from the highway. And right there on my property, wrapped bundles of framing lumber. Steel beams, pallets of brick, temporary fencing, deep forklift tracks cut through the mud. Every inch of it placed neat and organized like somebody had spent serious time planning exactly where it should go, just not on land they owned. And the weirdest part, I wasn't mad, not right away. I was too busy trying to understand how somebody got bold enough to even attempt this. My name, S. Garrett Nolan. I've owned 6 acres outside Mason Ridge, Colorado for 14 years. Bought it back when nobody cared about this side of the valley. No subdivisions, no model homes, no fancy signs talking about luxury mountain living while standing in the middle of dirt and weeds. Back then people told me I was wasting money. Nothing's ever gonna happen out there. That's what they said. And honestly, that was part of why I bought it. Flat ground, open sky, room to breathe, a place where nobody could tell me what color fence I needed or whether my truck was parked wrong. It was quiet, simple, mine. Then about 2 years ago, Westbridge Communities bought the neighboring parcel and suddenly the valley turned into noise. Survey crews, bulldozers, trailers, sales offices, billboards with smiling families and catchphrases like built for tomorrow. By the time winter rolled through, they were already carving streets into the hillside and framing houses faster than I could count. I mostly stayed out of their way. They mostly stayed out of mine. Or at least I thought they did. That morning I walked deeper across the east side. Slow, looking, counting, trying not to miss anything, and the more I looked, the more deliberate it felt. Orange spray paint on the ground, measurement arrows, grid lines, material grouped by section. Then I saw one of my property markers, steel boundary pin, bent sideways and shoved halfway into the dirt. Like someone had kicked it out of the way, I crouched down and picked mud off the top of it. And that was the moment my chest tightened, because pallets are one thing. People can pretend confusion. Pretend somebody parked wrong, pretend a subcontractor guessed bad. You don't move a property marker by accident, that takes a decision. Boone wandered farther ahead and barked. I walked over, and almost laughed. Westbridge had tied their temporary fence directly onto one of my cedar posts with thick wire, actually attached it, like my fence had become part of their layout. I stared at it for a second, then looked across the development. Cranes, dump trucks, crew trailers, everybody still arriving for the day, and I just shook my head. Because the nerve of that almost deserved applause. By 8, I was driving across to the site office. Portable building near the main entrance, fresh gravel, company banners, coffee brewing inside. A young assistant at the desk looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "Probably." A man in a blue button-down stepped out from a back office. Tall, trim beard, phone in hand, professional smile. "Morning, Evan Mercer, project manager." He stuck out his hand. I shook it. "Garrett Nolan." He nodded politely. Then I added, "The guy whose land your crew turned into a storage yard." And just like that, the smile got thinner. He glanced toward the window, then back. "Oh," that was all he said. Oh, like I'd mentioned a scheduling conflict. I kept my voice calm. "Who approved storing materials on my property?" He leaned against the desk. "We just needed temporary overflow while we finish foundations." He shrugged. "Tight footprint over here. And that made my land available." He gave this little half smile that immediately got under my skin. "Look, Garrett, we figured we'd clear everything out before it became an issue." Before it became an issue. I repeated that in my head. Then I asked, "Did you call?" "No." "Leave a note?" "No." "Ask permission," he sighed. "It's temporary." And there it was, that word, temporary, like that solved everything, like ownership had an expiration date if they were busy enough. I nodded slowly, then said, "Temporary roads exist, temporary fencing exists, temporary storage exists, temporary ownership doesn't." That landed harder than he expected. He straightened up. "Let's not turn this into a bigger problem." I looked at him, really looked at him. And suddenly I understood exactly what happened. They were under pressure, schedule running hot, space too tight. And somebody looked over at 6 open acres next door and decided it'd be easier to apologize later than ask now. He genuinely thought I'd accept it, or maybe not notice. Or maybe complain a little and eventually let it slide. I smiled, not angry, not loud, just calm enough to make him uncomfortable. Then I said, "You're right, no reason to make this bigger." Turned around. Walked out, got in my truck. And the second the door shut, I sat there gripping the steering wheel, feeling that very specific kind of anger that comes when somebody decides your boundaries don't count because they need something. I drove home, went straight to the workshop, opened the old steel file cabinet, started pulling records, warranty deed, county survey, tax files, easement documents, photos from the day I bought the place, fence receipts, everything. Boone curled up by the bench while papers spread across the table. And the more I looked, the cleaner it got, every boundary exact, every measurement documented, no overlap, no confusion, nothing unclear. Westbridge knew where the line was, they crossed it anyway. Around lunchtime, my neighbor Clara Jennings drove by and saw maps spread everywhere. Clara's lived out here forever and catches everything. She stepped out carrying iced tea and raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Westbridge finally tried something stupid. I laughed. Depends how you feel about finding half a construction site on your property. Her eyes widened, then she just shook her head. Those boys have been acting like they own the valley since day one. That helped more than she probably realized, because when people push hard enough you start wondering if maybe you're overreacting. I was, not even close. I organized the paperwork, made copies, slid everything into one folder. Then picked up the phone, county code enforcement. A woman named Denise answered. Steady voice, no nonsense. I explained exactly what happened. She listened. Asked for parcel numbers, asked if materials crossed documented lines, asked whether access or staging was permitted. I answered every question. Then she paused and said, Mr. Nolan, if what you're describing is accurate, we'll be there first thing in the morning. I thanked her, hung up, walked outside, sun dropping lower now. Light stretching across the grass. And there they were, all those pallets glowing gold in the afternoon like they belonged, like they'd won something. I stood there with Boone beside me and felt strangely calm. Because Westbridge still thought they'd borrowed a little extra space, still thought this was temporary, still thought tomorrow would be another normal workday, and they had absolutely no idea they'd just parked their entire schedule on the wrong 6 acres. The next morning I got there before sunrise, not because I was anxious, not because I couldn't sleep, mostly because if somebody's gonna learn a lesson on your property, it helps to already be standing there when they arrive. The valley was dark blue when I pulled up. Boone in the passenger seat, tail thumping against the door, coffee in one hand, a stack of signs in the truck bed. The air had that cold mountain bite to it, and everything felt still in that strange, quiet right before a job site wakes up. I grabbed the signs and started walking. Private property, no storage, no access, no trespassing, big white signs with thick red lettering, no confusion, no wiggle room. I planted every one exactly along the line where their materials crossed onto my land. Steel post, hammer, push, next one. Boone followed close behind me, occasionally sniffing pallets like he was personally inspecting violations. By the time I finished, headlights started turning into the site. A forklift operator rolled through the gate and immediately slowed. Another truck stopped behind him. Then 2 laborers stood there staring at the signs like they were trying to decide whether they were still awake. Nobody came over, nobody touched anything. And honestly, that silence was beautiful. Then county arrived. White SUV, county seal on the side. Denise stepped out first, mid-50s maybe, calm expression, clipboard already in hand. And beside her was Ramon, tall guy with a measuring wheel, camera, and that focused look inspectors get when somebody's paperwork is about to become a real expensive problem. I handed Denise the folder. She flipped through survey maps, property records, tax documents, fence photos, every page, then looked at me and nodded. Looks solid. That was all she said. Then they got to work. Ramon measured. Denise checked markers, photos from every angle, measurements confirmed against county survey. They inspected the fencing tied into my cedar post, documented tire tracks, documented spray paint, documented every pallet. By then crews from Westbridge were pretending to stay busy while very obviously watching. A framer carrying plywood froze halfway across the dirt. Someone shut off a generator. A forklift operator literally parked and climbed down to stare. Then right on cue, Evan Mercer came out of the trailer fast. Blue shirt, phone in hand, smile gone. He looked at Denise, then at me, then at the signs, and I could almost hear him realizing this wasn't a conversation anymore. Garrett, he said sharply, can we talk? Denise kept writing. I looked at him. We are. He forced a smile. This is a misunderstanding. Denise looked up. Sir, are you managing this parcel? Yes. Great. Then I need permit documentation authorizing temporary staging on neighboring private property. He blinked. We don't have that. She gave one tiny nod. Thought so. Ramon called out from the steel beams. 21 feet over boundary, Denise wrote, then another. 32 feet, more writing. Then she pulled a bright orange notice from her folder, and everything changed. First citation posted on the gate, then another. Then the stop work order, big and impossible to miss. Stapled front and center. The crane stopped mid-lift, steel hanging in the air. A cement truck got waved off before entering. 2 deliveries turned around. A subcontractor muttered something and got back in his pickup. And in less than 10 minutes, the busiest construction site in Mason Ridge sounded like a church parking lot. Wind, boots, silence. Even Boone sat down and watched like he knew the show had officially started. Evan walked toward me lower and faster. This is costing us serious money, I nodded. So was using land you don't own. It was temporary. That word again, I looked him dead in the eye. Temporary's expensive today. That shut him up. Then the parade began. By mid-morning, black SUVs rolled in, corporate people, legal people, someone from planning. A woman stepped out in a tailored coat and heels that absolutely hated gravel. She introduced herself. Marissa Cole, Regional Director for Westbridge. Perfect voice. Perfect smile. The kind people practice in meetings. Mr. Nolan, she said, we believe there may be confusion around grading access. I handed her the survey. She scanned it, looked at county stamps, looked at Denise, then back at me, and her smile changed, not gone, just tighter, less polished, more math happening behind the eyes. Well, she said carefully, perhaps we can resolve this quickly. Denise answered before I could. Not until violations are corrected. That may have been my favorite sentence all week, because now nobody was negotiating with emotion. Now they were negotiating with consequences, and consequences don't care about company logos. By noon, workers started hauling material. Fast, forklifts backing up non-stop, pallets lifted, steel moved, brick crossing back over, but every move got photographed, every measurement rechecked. Ramon documented everything like he was writing a textbook. Nobody argued, nobody joked. Nobody smiled. Clara Jennings pulled up around one with iced tea and leaned against her truck. I knew this would get entertaining, I laughed. Glad you made it. Oh, I canceled lunch plans. That nearly broke me. Meanwhile, Evan looked like he'd aged 5 years, calls non-stop, foreman pacing, a delivery driver yelling into a headset, someone from accounting showed up with a folder, and through all of it, Denise stayed calm as a judge. Then around sunset, the black pickup arrived, fast, dust flying. Driver's side door opened hard, and out stepped Trevor Halstead, owner of Westbridge Communities. I'd seen his face on billboards and newspaper articles, different in person. Tall, sharp, expensive jacket, the kind of guy used to people stepping aside. He looked at the site, at the citations, at the crane sitting still, at crews hauling under pressure, then finally at me. You Garrett Nolan? That's me. He walked closer, stopped maybe 10 feet away. You understand this delay is costing thousands every hour. I took a slow sip of coffee, then looked behind him at workers rushing pallets back over the line, then looked him right in the eye. No, Trevor, crossing my property line is what cost you thousands every hour. He stared, didn't blink, wind moving through dry grass. Backup alarms screaming somewhere behind him, nobody around us saying a word. Then he gave this tiny, humorless smile. Like he'd finally met resistance that wasn't impressed by money. And for the first time all day, his anger faded. Not gone, just replaced by something colder, more focused. He looked past me toward the open 6 acres, then down at the survey marker by our boots, then back at the stop work order on the fence. And when he spoke again, his voice changed. Calmer, sharper, more dangerous in a different way. He said, "Walk with me." And the second he turned toward the eastern line, I knew the real conversation was finally about to begin. Trevor turned and started walking toward the eastern edge of my property without saying another word, and I followed right behind him while Boone padded through the grass beside us. Behind us, the whole job site was still moving under portable lights, forklifts backing up, workers hauling pallets, supervisors yelling over engines, but out near the property line it felt strangely quiet, just wind moving through the field and boots pressing into dirt. Trevor stopped beside one of the steel markers his crew had shoved aside the day before. He looked down at it, then out across my land, then finally at me. For a second he didn't say anything, and honestly, neither did I. Because sometimes silence says more than people do. Then he let out a breath and rubbed the back of his neck. Phase 1 closes in 6 weeks, he said. If we miss deadlines, buyers get nervous, lenders get nervous, contractors reschedule, everything stacks. I nodded once. He kept looking out across the 6 acres. We underestimated storage. Clearly. He gave the smallest smile, then said what I already knew. Your parcel looked easy, not we made a mistake. Not we got confused. Easy. That one word, and somehow that irritated me more than anything Evan had said, because it was honest. My land looked flat, open, convenient, available, and they made a choice. I folded my arms. So you used it, he nodded. Yeah. At least he didn't dodge it. Then he looked over at the temporary fencing tied into my cedar post, the orange paint still on the dirt, the displaced survey pin, and his jaw tightened. That shouldn't have happened. No, the fence either. Nope. And nobody should have touched your markers. That one especially. He gave one hard nod, then looked me dead in the eye. We crossed a line. I glanced down at the marker. Pretty literally. That actually got a breath of laughter out of him. Short, dry, then it disappeared. He stood straighter. Tell me how we fix it. Just like that, no games, no threats, no legal dance, just a man with a very expensive problem finally asking the right question, and I answered. Everything off my property before sunrise, every tire rut repaired, fresh topsoil where forklift tracks tore through the ground, every marker reset by a licensed surveyor, a written acknowledgement from Westbridge confirming the legal boundary, payment for unauthorized use, and a clause making it crystal clear nobody from his company entered my parcel again without written approval. Trevor listened, hands in pockets, expression flat, then said, done. That's simple. I expected at least some pushback, maybe negotiating, maybe let me talk to legal. None. He turned immediately and started issuing orders. And that was honestly the most impressive part, because within minutes the entire site changed direction. Floodlights came on brighter, crews redirected, forklifts doubled up, managers sprinting, phones ringing, legal team outside the trailer opening laptops. Westbridge basically stopped building houses and started undoing every bad decision from the last 24 hours. Clara pulled up around 9 with sandwiches and iced tea. No warning, just rolled down her window and said, "Thought you might need dinner." I laughed. She handed me a turkey sandwich, looked at the work lights, then at the chaos, and grinned. Well, this is better than television. Way more expensive, too. She nearly spit out her tea laughing. Boone got half my sandwich. He had earned it. Meanwhile, Trevor stood out there personally directing traffic. Forklift here, steel there, brick back across, nothing on my side, no hesitation, no pretending. A foreman tried arguing about staging room. Trevor shut him down immediately. No, move it. And that was that. By 10:30, the east side looked dramatically different. Half the pallets were gone, fence untied, tracks being leveled, crews sweating through shirts, portable lights throwing long shadows across the grass. Then 2 county survey trucks rolled in. Tripods, spotlights, reflective gear. They reset every marker one by one, measured, double-checked, hammered steel into the ground, documented every inch. Trevor stood there watching every single one, and weirdly that mattered, because he could have hidden, could have blamed Evan, could have sent attorneys. Instead, he stood ankle-deep in dirt while his company fixed what they caused. Around midnight, he walked over and handed me a folder. Everything's here. I opened it under flashlight. Written acknowledgement, boundary certification request. Land restoration terms, payment agreement, access restrictions, signed by Westbridge. Initialed by legal, county witness pending, clean, simple, binding. I looked up. Trevor asked, fair? I closed the folder. Yeah. Then added, would have been cheaper to ask yesterday. That finally got a real smile. Yeah, it definitely would have. We shook hands, firm, short, no fake friendship, no dramatic ending. Just mutual understanding. He learned exactly where the line was, and I made sure he remembered. County inspection happened again first thing next morning. Denise walked every inch, checked grading, checked markers, checked paperwork, then peeled the stop work order off the fence. By noon, Westbridge was moving again. Concrete trucks, framers, machinery, everything back to normal except one thing. They had rented a commercial storage yard across the highway. Proper fencing, proper permits. Their own land. Amazing how fast people find legal options once consequences get expensive enough. A week later, I walked the east side near sunset. Grass bending in the wind, fence post straight, markers clean, no pallets, no tire tracks, no paint, Boone chasing rabbits like nothing had ever happened. Clara drove by, stopped, rolled down her window. So, think they learned? I looked over toward the development. A forklift unloaded lumber well inside their own fencing. Not even close to my line. Then I looked down at the fresh steel marker in the dirt and said, I think they paid enough to remember. She laughed and drove off. But here's what I still think about. Trevor did fix everything, fast, paid every dollar, handled it, owned it, and I respect that. Honestly, I do. But if I hadn't gone out there that morning, if I'd been out of town another day, if nobody called county, would they have stopped? Or would another pallet have shown up, then another? Then equipment, then trailers, until one day 6 acres slowly stopped feeling like mine because somebody else decided convenience mattered more than boundaries. That part still sits with me, because people rarely cross lines all at once. Usually they move inch by inch, a little pressure, a little assumption, a little temporary, and they wait to see if you say anything. So I'm curious what you think. Did Trevor deserve credit for fixing it the minute reality hit him? Or do you think Westbridge knew exactly what they were doing from the start? Would you have called county like I did, or handled it face-to-face another way? Drop your take in the comments. I read every one. And if you enjoy stories about land disputes, stubborn neighbors, and people learning the hard way that boundaries still matter, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.